YouTube. This is the Pink Patriot. Happy Saturday, first and foremost. It's a beautiful day to be alive in the United States of America. Beto O'Rourke. You'll remember Beto O'Rourke from his failed gubernatorial run in the state of Texas. He made some comments this week in lead up to his presidential run regarding reparations. Reparations. To those of you who've been living under a rock for the past 10 years and missed the entire Obama presidency, reparations are retroactive retribution paid by people, hypothetically, whose ancestors many generations ago possibly held slaves. And Beto O'Rourke said that should he attain the office of the presidency, which is super cute that he would think that he would sign a bill into law or an executive order, I forget which one, supporting reparations. Which got me thinking. First of all, I want to state that I am completely and utterly on board with this idea. 100%. Because I think we should all pay for the sins of our very distantly dead relatives. Possible sins of our dead relatives. And I started thinking, how would these reparations affect me? What about the 50% of me that's Irish and likely came over as indentured servants? You know, a lot of people don't know this, but during the time of slavery in the United States, before it was kindly abolished by the first Republican president, you know, Abraham Lincoln, who formed the Republican Party in opposition to slavery and signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Yeah, all that. Ended slavery in the United States. Prior to that, not all slaves that entered the United States were of African origin. As a matter of fact, a substantial amount of those slaves were slaves that came over from Europe, primarily Irish slaves. Now, the Irish slaves were of less value than the African slaves because, you know, take them to a cotton plantation and they spontaneously combust into flames because they're so pale and they can't stand the heat and the, you know, grueling temperatures. They pretty much, they just died really early. So they were incredibly cheap. They weren't as valuable. So they were treated very badly, not just by slave holders, but by other slaves. So would that part of me still pay reparations? And then what about the part of me that's Cherokee? Because unlike Pocahontas, my family's name is actually on the Dawes Roll. To those who don't know, the Dawes Roll was the American government's way of keeping track of the 5 civilized tribes and the names of the families before they marched them on a death march across multiple states. So yeah, in the Cherokee Nation, in order to be a tribal member, your family's name has to be on that Dawes Roll. My family is. So would that portion then receive reparations? And then I got to thinking, what about people who are half black and half white? Would their reparations equal out? And as far as DNA goes, are we all going to then take DNA tests? If we're going to get technical about this, we should all probably take DNA tests to make sure that we're paying the proper percentage of reparations, because I don't want anybody getting away with murder because of their ancestors. So I'm assuming with this legislation there would be DNA tests to determine what percentage of your family actually is of European ancestry. But then at the height of slavery, only 6% of United States citizens even owned slaves. So we should probably go back to the historical records. But going back to DNA, once we do that and we figure out what percentage, I just realized it's kind of like dog breeds to see how purebred a dog is. It's got a little German on it, doesn't it, Robert Francis? Also, are you retarded, Robert Francis O'Rourke? And I know this comes as a huge surprise to leftists and maybe even centrists, but you know, as conservatives, even libertarians, we detest talking about race. We find it really icky. Most conservatives and libertarians don't give a damn. We don't care what color you are. I live my life meeting an individual, assuming they're good, and then if they prove me wrong, I change my opinion, which is how most normal, non-sociopathic people tend to live their life. And having grown up in the South, well, lived in the South all of my life, I can truly say that I've never once met a legitimate racist. Because a racist is someone who sees no exception. In fact, I don't know that I've ever met anyone who uses racial slurs. It's just not something we do in the South. It's bad manners. We're all about really good manners. We're all about not blaming other people for what their very, very dead ancestors might possibly have done. Because we hate bringing up race so much, because we tend to focus on the content of one's character as opposed to the color of their skin. Because of this, we generally don't talk about it. But I bring it up because of Robert Francis. And because, surprisingly, this has been a talking point within the Democratic Party. And for all the accusations of racism in the evil Republican Party, for all those accusations, you people sure like to talk about the color of people's skin. You sure like doing that, which is so bizarre because, as I mentioned previously, it was the first Republican president who signed the Emancipation Proclamation. And it was the Democrats who historically have voted down and voted against every civil rights bill. It is historically the Democrats who formed the KKK. It is historically the Democrats who signed into federal law Jim Crow. Jim Crow laws were not just voluntary laws that people arbitrarily made up in southern states to forcibly segregate people. No, those were federal laws by Democrats. This is all stuff that the current Democratic Party conveniently leaves out. I'm not even going to go over the comments that one of their messiahs and heroes Lyndon B. Johnson said regarding Black Americans. I won't even cover those comments. You can Google them, because frankly, I hate telling people to Google things, but frankly, it's not rhetoric that I like to repeat, because I'm a good Southern girl and I don't use racial slurs. Maybe something to look into. And Planned Parenthood that the Democrats love so much, you might want to also check into Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, who was a rabid racist and eugenicist. I will quote her one line, specifically the time that she said, "We don't want word to get out that we want to exterminate the Negro population." Hillary Clinton's hero, Margaret Sanger. Planned Parenthood was formed to eradicate minorities in this country. That's why it was formed. And even now, look at Planned Parenthood. Look at where most Planned Parenthood centers are and where they focus all their attention. In low socioeconomic, high minority urban areas. Kind of weird. It's almost like they haven't moved from their founders' ideology. I'm not saying that all Democrats are racist. I'm just saying it's becoming a universal law that whatever the left throws at conservatives and libertarians and centrists, whatever slur they throw, they're likely guilty of it. So how about we stop talking about the level of melanin that somebody has in their skin? And how about we start talking more about making our communities better, doing what we can within our home and our communities to lower crime, to be more morally upstanding, and to be better people. It's kind of what we do in the South, and we tend to do pretty well. We tend to get along with just about everybody. What we don't like is when people try to blame dead ancestors. Just some thoughts on a Saturday. I love y'all. Have a great day.